What's up? Welcome to Neon Mushroom. Welcome back if you've been here before. We have an EDH Commander gameplay video for you guys. Just a few disclaimers before we get into the video. One, I'm wearing a mask because I have a cold sore, so you guys don't have to see my cold sore. Plus, there's a global pandemic, so it's thematic. Two, I had a problem with uploading this video. We caught some errors. There's a couple big ones. I'm going to kind of go over them briefly and as ambiguously as I can without giving away too much about the game. Aiden's going to make a play with a card that's illegal. The play that he makes does not affect the game in any way that turned out to be meaningful, so we got really lucky. You'll see what I mean as the game goes on. And then there were a few misplays by me at the end because I'm playing a deck that I'm newer to. I had this deck built a while ago, but I just re-sleeved it, and there were some things that happened on untap steps that I wasn't aware of. We'll get to both of those things at the end of the video. And then the last one is, there's a few other tiny misplays that really don't matter. I really wanted to upload this video because it's actually a really good highlight on some things that's really easy to miss in a game of Magic the Gathering, especially in Commander. All that said, that's all you should need to know. Let's go ahead and check out who's going to be playing, what decks are going to be playing, and their opening hands. Alrighty, we're going to start with myself. I'm playing my freshly sleeved Kumena Tyrant of Orazca deck. I'm going to keep a 7-card hand with Flooded Grove, Island, a Birds of Paradise, Thieving Skydiver, Kodama's Reach, and a Chord of Calling. Next up, we have Aiden, who's actually going to be playing one of my decks, my Nicol Bolas the Ravager Vorthos deck. He keeps a 7-card hand with Ancient Tomb, Tainted Peak, Swamp, Talisman of Creativity, Necromancy, Disciple of Bolas, and Command the Dreadhorde. Then we have Calvin coming in with his Edgar Markov deck. He keeps a 7-card hand as well with a Reflecting Pool, Concealed Courtyard, Prismatic Vista, Vampire of the Dire Moon, Cordial Vampire, Anguish on Making, and a Chandra Fire Artisan. And then, new to the channel, we have Mr. Ryan Foley bringing his Oloro deck, and he also keeps a 7-card hand with Temple of Deceit, Temple of the False God, Obzedat, Ghost Council, and then 2 islands, 1 plains, and 1 swamp. Alright, I'm lucky enough to win the die roll, so I'm going to start on island and pass the turn to Aiden. He's going to play Ancient Tomb, tapping it, losing 2 life to play Talisman of Creativity. Moving over to Calvin's turn, he's going to play Concealed Courtyard, which comes into play untapped. Then he'll play Vampire of the Dire Moon and trigger Edgar. At that point, we'll pass the turn over to Ryan, who draws a card, gains 2 life because of his commander, plays Temple of Deceit, and scries to the top. Moving to the second turn cycle, I'll draw, play Flooded Grove, filter some mana to get green, play Birds of Paradise, let the mana drain out of my pool, and pass the turn. Aiden will just play Swamp and pass over to Calvin. Calvin's going to draw a card, play Reflecting Pool, and then he's going to play Cordial Vampire. This will trigger Edgar, he'll get another token, he's going to head into combat, and he's going to swing at 2 right in at Aiden. That's going to gain him a life because Vampire of the Dire Moon does have lifelink. Moving over to Ryan's turn, he'll gain 2 life, draw a card, play an island, and pass the turn to me. I'm going to play an island and kick Thieving Skydiver to steal Aiden's talisman, eliciting this response.
No!
And I'm going to steal your talisman.
You slut! I'm going to kill you!
I assume you want to tap and respond. With no other plays, I'll pass the turn over to Aiden, who's just going to draw a card and play Tainted Peak, and then shift the turn right back to Calvin. After untapping and drawing for turn, he's going to play Prismatic Vista as his land for turn. Then he'll tap for 1 black and play Indulgent Aristocrat. This will trigger Edgar and he'll make a Vampire token. He'll head to combat and he'll swing in at me for 2 and in at Aiden for 2. With no blocks declared, he's going to crack that Prismatic Vista for a mountain, and then I'll let him explain what he does at this point.
Activate Indulgent Aristocrat, we're going to sack this Vampire token, and we're going to put a +1/+1 counter on each vampire I control. However, Cordial Vampire is going to trigger because the creature died, and we're going to put a +1/+1 counter on each vampire I control.
Oh dear. After that point, he's going to put the counters on his vampires. Me and Aiden will both take 6. Calvin will gain 3 and will pass the turn to Ryan, who gains 2, plays a Plains, and then plays Eiley, Eternal Pilgrim. With nothing else, we pass back to my 4th turn. I'm going to open up by tapping 3 mana and casting Kodama's Reach. I do make a small mistake here, as the land that I get to put into play, I do put into play untapped. I'm going to use this mana, but we'll just pretend I use the birds instead. It actually doesn't affect the game, luckily. I'll play that island as my land for turn, and then I'll tap out for my Kumena Tyrant of Orazca. At this point, we'll pass the turn to Aiden, who will draw, play Underground River. He's going to tap for 5, losing 3 life to play Nicol Bolas. At that point, we all have to discard a card. We do so, and then Aiden lets that last mana drain out of his pool, and he passes over to Calvin. After drawing for turn, Calvin's going to head straight into combat and attack Ryan with everything. Ryan will block the Indulgent Aristocrat with Eiley, but Calvin will feed the Aristocrat to itself, and this will do the same thing he did last turn and put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature. At that point, Ryan will take 20 damage and will pass the turn to Ryan. Ryan gains 2 off Oloro, draws a card, plays a Swamp, and then he taps out, for an Aetherflux Reservoir, putting a giant target right on his head. After that, I'll pass the turn to me. After untapping and drawing, I'm going to tap 2 and play my own Talisman, Talisman of Curiosity. I did not have to steal this one. Then I'll tap for 5 and play Seaborn Muse. I'm going to tap my Thieving Skydiver to give Kumena unblockable, and I'm going to come in at Ryan for 2 commander damage. With nothing else, we'll pass the turn over to Iden, and as he untaps, so will I. Alright, heads up, this is going to be the turn where Iden makes that illegal misplay that I told you guys about before the video. He drops Sulphur Falls, and then he plays Spark Double, illegally copying Seaborn Muse. Keep in mind it doesn't wind up mattering this game, we got very lucky. I'm then going to tap for 7 and 3 green, and cast Chord of Calling for 7. I'm going to get Tishana, Voice of Thunder, and when she enters the battlefield, I'm going to draw 5 cards, and as long as she remains in play, I will have no maximum hand size. After that, we'll pass the turn over to Calvin, and I will untap with him. He's going to drop a basic mountain as his land for turn, and head straight into combat, attacking me with everything. I'm going to block the Aristocrat with my birds, a token with Tishana, and the Cordial Vampire with Thieving Skydiver. Calvin will then try to Anguished on making my Seaborn Muse. I will respond with a Swan Song, and all of this resolves, so Calvin's going to get a bird. Then we're going to go into combat damage, and he's going to wind up killing everything I blocked with except for my Tishana, and I will kill his token. Then I'm going to take 5, and he's going to gain 5. After those creatures die, he's going to get 3+1/+1 counters on each of his creatures, and then we're going to pass the turn right over to Ryan. Ryan will gain 2 off Oloro, draw a card, play Basic Island as land for turn, and with nothing else, he passes the turn to me. I'm going to start off by tapping 4 mana, 2 green and 2 colorless, and I'm going to play Triumph of the Hordes, giving my entire team +1/+1 trample and infect. Then I'll turn everything sideways at Calvin because I'm scared of dying to him next turn. That's going to put 13 infect on him and he will lose the game. Then I'll play Follow Sage, and before ending my turn, I'll tap Follow Sage to Kumena to give it unblockable. This will trigger Follow Sage, I'll draw a card, and then we'll pass the turn to Iden, and I will untap with him. Once we're both finished untapping, he'll play Polluted Delta as his land for turn, and turn Nicol Bolas sideways at me, dealing 4 commander damage. Before the damage is dealt, I will tap Follow Sage to give Kumena unblockable, draw a card, and with nothing else I take the damage. Iden's going to fetch for an island, dropping to 23. He's going to tap out, losing 3 life to flip Nicol Bolas the Ravager into the Planeswalker Nicol Bolas the Arisen. Then he'll use his +2 ability to draw 2 cards, and with nothing else after that point, we'll be passing the turn over to Ryan. On Ryan's upkeep, he'll gain 2 to Oloro, he'll play Orzhov Basilica as his land for turn, bouncing an island, and before he can pass to me, I'll tap Follow Stage to give Kumena unblockable to draw a card. After that, I'll untap and draw a card for turn, and I'll play Karn's Bastion as my land for turn. After that, I'm going to tap 2 mana and play Farseek. That's going to let me go get a basic island and put it into play tapped. And before doing anything else, I'll tap Follow Sage to give Kumena unblockable, triggering Follow Sage, and I'll draw a card. Then I'm going to tap for 1 blue and play Enclave Cryptologist. Now that I have 3 Merfolk, I'll tap all 3 of my available Merfolk to use Kumena's draw card ability. After that point, we're going to tap some more mana, and I'm going to play Thada, Adel, Acquisitor. I did have to use my Talisman for colored mana, so I will drop down to 24 and pass the turn to Iden. I'll untap with him. He'll start his turn by ticking up that Nicol Bolas to draw 2 cards. After that, he's going to play Dragon Skull Summit as his land for turn, and then he's going to tap 2 for Talisman of Dominance. After that point, he's going to tap 5 using his Ancient Tomb, so he will lose 2 life, and I'll play Crux of Fate. I don't like that, so I'm going to cast Counterspell. He doesn't like that, so he's going to cast his own Counterspell. Now with that on the stack, I'm going to tap for 4 mana, 3 of it's going to be blue, 1's going to be colorless, and I'm going to cast Cryptic Command, choosing to counter his Counterspell, and bounce his Nicol Bolas. After all of this resolves, Iden's going to be left tapped out and with no Nicol Bolas. At the end of his turn, I'll tap Follow Sage to give Kumena unblockable and draw a card. Then I'll tap 3 Merfolk I control using Kumena to draw another card. At that point, we'll tap for 1 green, and I'll cycle Tranquil Thicket to draw another card. With nothing else to do, I'll allow the turn to pass over to Ryan. After we've all untapped, Ryan's going to gain 2 life, and then play Terramorphic Expanse as his land for turn. He'll tap out and play Felidar Sovereign. This will trigger his Aetherflux Reservoir. He'll go up to 33. Then he's going to crack that Terramorphic Expanse and go grab a basic Plains. At the end of his turn, I'm going to tap 5 Merfolk I control to put a +1/+1 counter on each of my Merfolk. That's going to trigger Follow Sage, and I will draw a card. Still, at the end of his turn, I'm going to use Karn's Bastion and proliferate my whole team, giving them another +1/+1 counter. With no other actions, I'm going to untap and go to my turn, and I'll draw a card for turn. Then I'm going to play Reliquary Tower as my land for turn, giving me another source of infinite hand size, and turn everything sideways at Iden. He's going to block my Tishana. It's 14 damage, so when I proliferate here, it's going to be exactly 18, and that will kill Iden. Then I'll play Sea Hunter, and after that point, I'll remember to give Iden back his Talisman, and we will pass the turn over to Ryan. After Ryan and I are both done untapping, he's going to play Island as land for turn and gain 2 life. Then he's going to tap for some mana and play Beacon of Immortality, triggering his Aetherflux Reservoir. With that on the stack, I'm going to cast Inspiring Call. All of my creatures with +1/+1 are going to get indestructible, and I'll draw 5 cards. Then with that still on the stack, I'm going to cast Cyclonic Rift, not overloaded, to bounce his Aetherflux Reservoir. Once that's all done, the Beacon of Immortality will resolve, putting him up at 72 life. And then at the end of his turn, I'll tap Follow Sage to give Kumena unblockable and draw a card. Then I'll tap 3 more Merfolk to draw another card off of Kumena. And then I'm going to go to my turn, untap, and draw for turn. I'll play Novigen, Heart of Progress, as my land for turn. Then I'm going to activate Sea Hunter. I'm going to search my library for a copy of Surge Banner and put it directly into play. I'm going to tap my Surge Banner to give Kumena unblockable, and when Surge Banner is tapped, I'll activate its ability to tap 2 mana and try to bounce Felidar Sovereign. Ryan decides he would like to sack the Felidar Sovereign instead and gain 6 life, which is equal to its toughness. Then I'm going to turn my whole team sideways at Ryan. Even after taking all 32 of the damage, he's still going to wind up at a whopping 46. I'll tap 3 and play Mirror Regery, and after that I'm going to tap for some more mana and play Merfolk Sovereign, triggering Mirror Regery. I'll untap Follow Sage, and then I'll immediately tap it to give Kumena unblockable and draw a card. Then we'll pass over to Ryan's turn. Ryan's going to gain 2 and go up to 48 and play Basic Swamp as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 5 mana and he's going to cast Fumigate. Now while that's on a stack, I am going to have some actions. I'll tap Follow Sage to give Kumena unblockable and draw a card. Then I'm going to tap 3 more Merfolk to use Kumena's second ability and draw another card. Now I still haven't found the answer quite yet, so I'm going to tap Surge Banner to give Kumena unblockable, then tap 2 to bounce Ryan's Temple of Deceit. Once that goes back to his hand, I'm going to tap 3 more Merfolk, and I'm going to activate Kumena's second ability again to draw a card. Still haven't found it, so I'm going to activate Sea Hunter and search my library for a Merfolk. I'm going to get Wanderwine Prophets, and I'm going to champion it over Surge Banner. Now the Fumigate is going to resolve, but the nice thing about championing a Merfolk is that the Surge Banner comes back into play when the Wanderwine Prophets dies, so everything will die. Ryan will gain 11 and go up to 59, but I will get my Surge Banner back. At the end of his turn, I'll cast Worldly Tutor, I'll search my library for a Murkfiend Liege, put it on top of my library, and then we're going to move over to my turn. I'm going to untap a copious amount of lands, and I'm going to draw that Murkfiend Liege I put on top of my library. Then I'll play Castle Vantress as my land for turn. After that point, I'm going to tap for 5 mana, and I'm going to play that Murkfiend Liege. Then I'm going to head straight into combat and attack Ryan for 3 because it's being pumped by the Murkfiend Liege. It's a Surge Banner, so when it becomes tapped to attack, I'm going to tap 2, and I'm going to bounce his Orzhov Basilica. With nothing after that, he's going to take 3 from the Surge Banner, then I'll cast Silvergill Adept, revealing Merfolk Looter from my hand, and I will draw a card off of the Silvergill Adept. On Ryan's untap, I'll untap all green and blue creatures I control. Ryan will gain 2 and play an island as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap for 4 mana and play Test of Endurance. That resolves. With nothing else, we're going to untap and go to my turn. After drawing my card, I'm going to play Basic Forest as my land for turn. I'll tap 2 to play Quest for Renewal. I'm basically trying to rebuild that Seaborn Muse. Now I'm going to tap for 5 mana and play Kumena again. I'm going to head into combat and attack Ryan for 10. When Surge Banner becomes tapped, I'll tap 2 to bounce his Test of Endurance. My Quest for Renewal will get 3 counters. Now I'm going to tap 2 mana and play Metallic Mimic, naming Merfolk. I'm going to tap the Metallic Mimic to give Kumena unblockable and activate my Quest for Renewal. On Ryan's upkeep here, I'll use Murkfiend Liege to untap my green and blue creatures, and I'm going to tap 3 Merfolk I control to use Kumena's second ability and draw a card. My Surge Banner was tapped, so I'll activate its ability to bounce Ryan's Island, and then I'll draw my cards off Kumena. Then my Quest for Renewal will go off, I'll untap my creatures. Ryan's going to gain 2 and draw his card for turn. He's going to play Basic Island as his land for turn, and then he's going to count out some mana. It's going to be a grand total of 5. He's going to play Obsidian Ghost Council, which will trigger. That'll bring me down to 22, and it'll go up to 52. Before it phases out, I'll draw a card with Kumena, and then we'll move over to my turn. I'll untap all of my lands and creatures, and I'm going to draw a card for turn. At that point, I'm going to go ahead and play Command Tower as my land for turn, and I'll tap 2 for a Miro Commerce. After that, I'm going to tap 4 and play Guardian Project. And with Guardian Project in play, I'm going to cast that Merfolk Looter, which will trigger the Guardian Project, and I will draw a card. I'm now going to tap 3 more mana, and I'm going to play Herald's Horn. I will name Merfolk, obviously. And then I'm going to head straight into combat after remembering to put a counter on my Merfolk Looter, and I'll attack Ryan. Ryan will take 16 and drop down to 36. Then I'll trigger Miro Commerce and untap all of my Merfolk at my end step. Then I'm going to tap some Merfolk, and I'm going to use Kumena's second ability to draw a card. I have 3 more fish on tap, so I'll be able to do that one more time and draw another card, and then we will move to Ryan's turn. On Ryan's on-tap, I'll untap all of my blue-green creatures to my Murkfiend Liege, then I'll tap 3 to use Kumena's second ability to draw a card. Then the Quest for Renewal will go off, I'll untap my creatures, Ryan's going to gain 2 life, and that Obsidat's going to come back into play. That's going to do a drain gain. I'm going to go down to 20, and Ryan's going to go up to 40. After that point, Ryan will draw his card for turn. Ryan's going to tap 3 mana and play Rhystic Study. I have no responses, so he's going to tap the rest of his mana and redeploy that Test of Endurance. Then he's going to bounce an island to his hand to redeploy that Orzhov Basilica, and at the end of his turn, before that Ghost Council phases out, I'll Crozen Grip his Rhystic Study. I won't pay the 1, so Ryan is going to be able to draw a card. Still, before passing to my turn, I'm going to tap 3 Merfolk to activate Kumena's second ability and draw a card. Then we're going to move to my next turn. After drawing my card, I'm going to play Eternal Witness. That's going to let me go buy back my Triumph of the Hordes, which I will then cast, and since Ryan's tapped out, I'm going to attack him with everything, dealing lethal damage with Infect. I win the game. Death by Infect, what a way to go. Let's talk about a few things that happened in that game that were illegal. I'm sure you all saw that Aiden copied my Seaborn Muse with his Spark Double, which is not a legal play. He didn't use any of the mana that he was using to untap with his Seaborn Muse, so he let it go. We caught it after the game. This is not his deck. He doesn't actually own a copy of Spark Double. This is my Nicol Bolas deck, and we were all just so pumped to be playing. Calvin's back in town. For anyone who doesn't know, Calvin has been living in Japan for like 3-4 years, and now that he's back, we've all really been enjoying playing Commander with him. So we all missed it in the heat of the moment. Lucky for us, it didn't wind up mattering. You know about that. The other thing that kind of happened that was a big issue, we'll talk about. Obviously, there was a point where I cultivated and put my land into play untapped. Luckily, I had the Birds of Paradise, so I could have cast the Kumena either way. And then there were the big issues at the end. I did a few things that were technically illegal, and this is a really good learning point because I learned this while editing the video. On Foley's on tap, I had 2 triggers at some point, and it was the Quest for Renewal and the Murkfiend Liege. These actually aren't triggers, they're just things that happen on the untap step, and I can't respond to them happening, so they're not cumulative. I only untap these things once, and then I have to wait until upkeep to respond. This is just something really important to remember if you're playing some complex deck that likes to abuse things like Seaborn Muse. I guess Seaborn Muse isn't that complex, it's not a best kept secret, it's just a well-known thing. You play Seaborn Muse in your green decks. With all that in mind, let's kind of go over how the game went. So I'd like to start with Calvin's Edgar Markov deck. For those of you who don't know, which should be all of you, his Edgar deck is actually a Sorin themed deck. He got taken out so quickly, so we didn't really get to see that part of the deck. You'll be able to see that in the future. He got off to an incredibly fast start. He led on a 1-drop Vampire into a 2-drop Vampire. These keep triggering his Edgar, who's in the command zone. And then he had his Indulgent Aristocrat plus his, I think it's the Vampire of the Dire Moon. Every time a creature died, his whole team was pumped by 2, so he had this semi-aristocrats type theme going. He was able to put out a ton of damage output very early, which is actually why I had to force myself to just kill him with the Triumph of the Hordes. Normally I don't like using Triumph to just kill one player, but I think if the turn went back to Calvin, I was likely going to wind up dead. His deck was sweet. He only lasted till turn 6, so we didn't see a lot of the stuff he was able to do. But that should be just a showcase of how powerful Edgar can be as a commander, and especially if you build it right. It's like, if I wasn't able to kill him at that point, I think he would have killed me, and with me out of the way, he probably would have then killed Aiden, who was kind of the control deck, at least in the early part of the game. And then he probably would have found a way to take out Foley. So I think if Calvin wasn't taken out so quickly, he probably would have won the game. We've got Aiden, who is playing my Nicol Bolas deck. He did have the Spark Double play error. That wasn't a huge deal, luckily. Just keep that in mind, because I didn't even notice it, and I built the deck. He was doing a few cool things. I think he would have been off to a much quicker start if I hadn't stolen his Talisman with Thieving Skydiver. That's a fantastic new card. If you don't have your Thieving Skydivers yet, definitely grab them. It is a Merfolk, but you don't need it. You don't need to have a Merfolk deck to play this card in your blue deck. It's just a phenomenal card. For 3 mana, you get a 2/1 with like flying, and you steal a Soul Ring. That's really good. That's a really good return rate on paying 3 mana. Other than that, he didn't do a whole lot. He was able to flip Nicol Bolas. Like he did, I shouldn't say he didn't do a whole lot. He did a lot, but it wound up not mattering too much because I had enough permission to stop him from wiping my board, and I was able to take him out fairly quickly as well. And then we've got Foley, who definitely did the least amount of impactful game actions within the game, but he was very difficult to kill. If I hadn't found my Eternal Witness, I likely couldn't have killed him with Triumph of the Hordes. He, I think, gained probably somewhere near like 100 life that game, maybe more, and he presented a kill multiple turns. He had the Felidar Sovereign, he had the Test of Endurance. Luckily, my Merfolk deck is very well equipped to be able to stop this game plan, but look forward to more of him and more of that deck in the future. Then there was me. That was a really good showcase for Kumena. I absolutely love the Kumena deck. If you're looking for a Merfolk commander, I'd go with Kumena. If you like to grind value in a Simic deck, I'd recommend Kumena. You're going to see more about Kumena. Look forward to a deck interview, more about what that means in the future. But look forward to that like kind of deck tech deck interview video in the future. That's all I have for you guys today. This video has been quite long. I'm pretty sure it's almost 20 minutes. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I will see you next time.